Hey guys, so I'm going to start coaching other engineers. Why? Not because I think I have all the answers to everything, but instead because I think I can really provide value to people that need it most. Some people are in their final year of uni, applications are piling up, deadlines are piling up, and you've got a lot to do with your dissertation or your project or whatever else. There's a lot going on in the final year of uni, which is mainly where you need to apply for jobs. So I think I can really help out in that regard. I myself was quite successful throughout university. I was quite fortunate. I managed to get to 5 final stage interviews, of which I got offered 2 roles and became runner-up for another 2 as well. So I'm quite happy with that outcome, and I believe I can really provide value to anyone else that's looking for a role after university and to try and help them through the process. I've done the interviews myself, I've had rejections and I've had offers. The offers came after the rejections, funnily enough. I believe every time I went into it, I really looked at what I did wrong, and I really think I have this knowledge I can pass on to newer people going for grad roles and for engineering jobs in general. If you're just trying to break into engineering as such, I believe I can really be valuable towards you. But why would I start coaching? Well, that's the interesting thing. So it's not necessarily that I have a desire to be a big coach wherever. The desire I have is for something much more deeper. So very recently I've done the interviews myself. I've had rejections, I've had offers, I've had a wee bit of everything. I'm kind of building towards something that's helps more people inside your shoes, or something I wish I had back when I was applying for jobs. So in the background, I've been working on a platform called Electronics Unlocked. You may recognise it from the YouTube or TikToks, but I'm trying to take it in a whole new direction now. It started off as a learning or information platform in which you could go and learn about Arduino and electronics, but now I'm looking to go a wee bit broader and go into engineering as a whole, and mainly STEM. The reason for that is because I believe I can create a good chartership system. The chartership system itself is generally for recognised and known engineers to prove that they are a true engineer in their field of work or line of work, but in order to get into that line of work in the first place, there is currently very few or limited chartership systems in which you can prove, hey, I've done this, so that provides me as a better role candidate for this role. When you're applying for initial startup jobs, such as grad roles and entry-level jobs into engineering in general. For that reason, I really believe I've got onto something here. If I can create a chartership system for entry-level engineers and designers, then they can get into roles that they never thought possible before. Electronics Unlocked is not just going to be about tutorials, but it's going to be about planning your future. How can you get employers to notice you, and how can we get you into field and tech? It's not just about a shortcut. It's not just a quick way of doing things. You will need to put in effort, and throughout the coaching service as well, you will also need to put in the effort. I'm not going to simply do your CV for you or look through your jobs for you yourself. I'll provide you guidance and give you feedback on what you're saying and how you say it, but I will not personally be doing the interview for you. There is a way to do it, but you must put in the effort yourself. In order to do this, you must be willing to learn, you must be willing to study, and there's a different depth to this than what you believe. There's so many candidates going out and everyone has the same degree, it was very hard to get a role. So in order to get these roles, you must really be willing to put focus forwards. But with all that said, let's get into the rest of the video and we'll see what else we have to do for you. So the thing you need to know about your final year is it's quite chaotic. There's a lot to do, a lot of deadlines, and you're probably going to have to juggle everything all at once, which is natural, and everyone feels the same boat. There's too many deadlines, they all come up too quickly, and you may procrastinate 1 or 2 things, but at the end of the day, you've got to get it all done at the same time. But even with university, while you're still going and juggling all these things and having a social life and all that, you still need to be looking for applying for jobs. Job applications open up in August, September time, so that's when you've got to start applying for your roles, especially roles like defence and anything that takes up a large intake of candidates. They take months and months to apply for it. It's stressful, it's long, and you're going to be waiting a while. You should be applying for multiple roles. If you've only got one role nearby and you're not willing to move, that's a bit of a different situation. You're going to need to really focus on that role and try and get that if that's your goal. But at the end of the day, you should be focusing on a lot of them because they have so many candidates that it's hard to get yourself in the top spot, especially against thousands or hundreds of candidates, however many are there at the time. So we're going through this whole process. Everything's a wee bit everywhere. You don't really know what's going on. You're thinking everyone else is ahead of you. You're thinking your other students have got it all figured out. They don't. They're all lying to themselves if they think they do, to be quite frank. Nobody has it figured out in your last year. Is it that kind of feeling? No, but you are feeling a wee bit of imposter syndrome because you're doing very difficult work, trying to figure it out, and then you're feeling like someone else is ahead of you. That's all natural and it will all come. But in one way you can prepare is you can sort out your career things by assigning it to someone like myself. A good way to prepare for your career is to segment some time and some preparation towards what you need to do. This is where I come in. I can give you a set plan to follow, I can give you recommended hours to follow, and if you can set this plan every single week where you're applying for jobs, setting up your career goals, setting up your skills pathway, then in that case you can have an idea of what you're doing while you're looking for jobs, rather than just randomly going out into the blue looking for jobs, hoping for the best, because that's essentially what I did, and it worked out for me. But I was quite lucky. Quite a lot of people around me just weren't able to achieve that, and there's a good reason for it, because it's a very hard thing to do. You just have to kind of know your system, know your plans, and as well as that, be prepared yourself for interviews and prep. And part of this video is to bring our attention towards the fact that you do now need to look at your career seriously. You're going to the end of uni, and if you want a role within your degree, you're more likely to get it as soon as you get out of uni, or quickly as you come out of uni. Obviously, if you want to take your career a different path, you want to go gap year, go for it. Like, that is all encouraged as well. But if you're really looking to get your career started, now is the best time to do it. And now should generally be the best time to do it, because you have everything lined up for you. You just need to take these extra steps to get to where you want to be. So here's a few things to understand when you're applying for jobs. You don't want to burn out, so you don't want to be applying for 100 jobs. Every job application should take you at least half an hour, let's say. There's quite a few stages that most of the good ones go through. So if you're applying for defence, if you're applying for any sort of larger company, there will be many stages for you to go for. This could either work in your favour or against you. There are some that are very, they say, personality based, which isn't quite focused on engineering or anything like that. They just kind of want to know what kind of person you are, which is at the same time is good, but also takes a lot of your time up when you're applying, unfortunately. So if you're applying for at least half an hour per job, you don't want to be going for 100 jobs, because that's 50 hours taken away from you. You could have you spent that on your uni work, you could spend that in your own social life. You only want to spend so many hours applying for jobs. But that contradicts exactly, there's so many jobs and so many applicants. So what do? You've got to work on the jobs that are best for you, simply put. The jobs that are best for you are generally the ones that work well for you, the one that work in your skill set, the one that you know you want to do, and the general broad jobs which you could fall back on if you're in the situation in which you need a job. If you need a job, then you apply for more broadly ranged skill sets. If you're tailoring your application to only be a specific job set or jobs role, then you must make sure you're applying for each and every one of those that come up, because if you find yourself a niche and there's only so many of those niches coming up, there will be a few applicants to them, and you've got to make yourself number one in those applications. In general, if you make your applications more generic, they're more likely to be ignored, and if you make yourself more well researched and focused, you're more likely to get the interviews from that. So what that essentially means is, if you're applying for absolutely everything from tech to business to science to admin, you're gonna fail, essentially. If you go for more specifically, you want an electrical engineering technical role, then you can go even further into electrical engineering and see exactly what you want to do. Do you want to do digital electronics, control electronics, power, etc., etc.? You get the point. You want to be as specific as possible while having a fallback plan, just in case. The best thing you can do is find out about the job description and the company, and try and find out what exactly they need and what exactly they're looking for. If you find out what exactly that you can tailor all your stories, all your examples towards the job application. And if you can find situations in your life or in your schoolwork or in your work life, whatever, to directly apply, or at least loosely apply in such a way you can tailor it to be directly applied, then you can find situations and roles that make sense to the jobs you're applying for. In general, just show your problem solving skills, and not that you're necessarily wanting X role or you're wanting such and such to be the best. You just want to know, I can do this, what kind of job can align with me because I can do this, and I can provide this to your company if you allow me to. Show them you're more of a problem solving mindset, which means you can do a specific task, or you can do a general broad range of tasks, and then align it to how they are operating. So if they're operating on a specific CAD design, you can show them your CAD work, you can show them your CAD projects, and that's how you can align yourself to show, I can do this role. If I can get the opportunity, I can really prosper within this area. So next up, we're going to talk about CVs. You're going to be working on your CV throughout your last year, and hopefully before your last year's even started, you've got a good CV to get going. This is at your kind of awkward stage between your professional CV and your part-time CV. In a way, they should both interlink. You should be able to link your part-time CV to situations involving clients, involving natural situations. So if you're working at a coffee place, you can figure out there's a specific customer that wants a specific thing, or you can change it to, you can adapt the situation to seem more technical or to seem more business oriented for the role you're going for. There's many situations throughout your time now where you should be thinking, hey, that's a time I could put on my CV because I changed something, I did a problem solve, I fixed something that was broken without being asked, etc, etc, etc. So essentially, if you are in work and you find yourself fixing a broken soap dispenser, for example, that's one of the things I put through. There was a spring on the smoke dispenser that was broken. I could then put that on my CV and put it in for job interviews and be like, hey, I've managed to use my problem solving skills to figure out this specific task. The thing about CVs as well, there's no perfect CV. So other CV gurus may tell you there's a specific way to do your CV, so you need to line everything up nicely, you need to have dates here, you need to have X, Y, Z. You don't need any of that. My CV in that regard was very subpar. It was very poorly laid out, compared to what a job guru would tell you. There is a perfect way of doing it in the sense that there's a scannable CV. So if you're hoping your CV is like the first thing that's coming across somebody's desk, they've got 1,000 CVs, they just go, no, yes. There's a myth behind 6-second CVs, and that's the role behind the scannable perfect CV, if you will. So the perfect CV should show off your skills and experience within 6 seconds, and it should be lined up and arranged in that sense. My personal CV that I did for grad jobs wasn't. So honestly, I don't necessarily believe there is such a necessity for a perfect CV anymore, especially now with all the online tests you do, all the online interviews. You're going to be doing video interviews and you're going to be doing stuff just to accompany your CV. So in general, I would say the CV isn't as important as what it used to be, but you still have to have clear expectations, achievements, what you've done, and if you can get any sort of like internships or any sort of like short-term work in larger industries, that would help you significantly as well. So if you've not quite got to your four-year stage yet, look for opportunities for summer in which you can apply for roles within the technical trades, technical industries, and get those on your CV. Because the contents in the CVs are more important now than the layout and the structure. The layout and structure are good for companies that are solely hiring off the CV, but that's very rare nowadays. As I say, like, it's very unlikely somebody's going to read hundreds of CVs now, as opposed to getting them to do an online quiz and then quickly factoring out who's worthy and who's not worthy, essentially. So when you're quickly factoring out, you're doing tests, you're doing mathematics, basically just to prove you can do a good level of mathematics in the role. The point of the CV is not to impress someone with your life. You're not looking to tell them your dog, your cat, your sister, your brother. They don't care about any of that. They care about what jobs you've done, what you can do, and what you can bring to the table. Everyone can spot their unique individual self that has their own experiences, their own mindset, and that's what you are uniquely identifiable as. Because you are one person, you are not a big group of people, so use your own independence to try and tailor your CV to the best possible role and the best possible job applications you can. Because if you can bring some individuality to yourself as you're going for these roles and these competitive spots, then that will help you stand out among the crowd. Contrary to all this, I will offer CV tips that I've learned recently, because recently, as I've been learning more and more about the job coaching process, there are some CV tips that are better for sort of like boomers, if you will, some of the older banker managers who still want to see your CV, still want to work through that process. There are some steps and some layouts that are required for them almost. So for that reason, I will still go through that, and I've tailored my CV since to go along that same system. To when I'm future applying for roles, I can also be in that mindset of the old boomer managers will understand my CV and they won't be too taken off by my personal profile with all my dog and cat information on it. At the end of the day, it's not about being perfect, it's about being readable and understandable, and hopefully that is your gateway into getting a one-on-one interview or even a phone interview with somebody, because that is really where you want to shine. So another thing about the interview process and the acquisition of jobs is when you're going for an interview, it's not an exam. You're not looking for exact answers most of the time. Obviously, in technical interviews, it's a wee bit different. You are kind of looking for exact answers, but it's more about you and more about how you can do. In a technical interview, so long as you can get most of the answers were correct and generally the gist of everything that's going on, you'll be absolutely fine. With technical interviews, generally what I've found is it's always a few years less than what you've done in university or what you've done prior to leading up to the interview. So if you're going for for example, when I was going for digital interviews, they were asking questions from digital year 2, which is a lot more, it takes a lot of the stress off essentially. So you don't need to heavily study for technical interviews, although what I would recommend if you are studying for technical interviews, it's more of a case of finding out what that role does specifically and aiming your technical studies towards that while weighing up for the interview. So if you are going for an antennas place or a satellites place, you want to look up antennas, you want to look up signals, you want to look up everything to do with that to try and tailor your technical knowledge into that mindset, so when you get asked questions about antennas or signals, you'll be more than prepared for it, even though you should already kind of know what you're talking about. And that is the ideal goal of the technical interview. You obviously don't know what questions are going to come up, so you're going to just make sure you've got a broad understanding of the specific topic that your job role covers. Is communication. So if you can communicate to somebody that you know what you talk about in a technical role, and you can communicate to somebody that you would fit in well with a community within the non-technical interview, then you'll be putting yourself above your rest. And the best way to do this is practice. My first 2 interviews, I never actually got the job for, and I believe this is where I fell off. So when it came to the technical side of things, somebody was asking me about solar panels. I thought they were talking about generators, so we were talking in 2 different paths, and that's kind of where I fell off there. And then another one I fell off in the personal one because they asked me a question, and again I thought they said something different. But this is all it takes, just practice and reps essentially. So with the practice and reps, that's something we can work on within coaching. I can talk you through specific questions, specific scenarios they might go through, and feed them back to you and see how, and show you how you are responding to your own questions, if that makes sense. And the best thing about being shown how you're answering questions or understanding what you're doing to contribute to this factor is you can work on it. So if you're answering questions in such a way that it makes you seem either very unsure of yourself or very just not confident at all, there are specific methods you can do to work on that. And one part of that comes with studying your actual answers to some of the questions that are being presented with. So if it's tell me about a time where you improvised, or tell me about a time you had to choose between 2 bad options, these are difficult interview questions, but with enough reps and enough practice, you can quickly come up with general solutions that follow most of these headings, and that's something we can also work for as well. In general, with these kind of interviews, practice and repetitions is you don't want to wing your interviews, but when you're starting out, you generally do wing interviews and then you don't get the job. Then you wonder why you don't get the job, because you were winging the interview, essentially. So long as you're not winging the interview, you should be strong. And this is part of the reason why most people fail. But if you want to keep on practicing, that's how you're going to get as many jobs as possible, and you're going to have a lot more options than maybe your peers around you. So throughout your university life and throughout your life in general, you should be doing additional activities. These additional activities could be anything from sports, from tutoring, to side projects you're doing. In general, whatever you're doing alongside your part-time job or alongside your university, what are you doing extra? These extra things are very important because not only are they optional, that's one of the main factors, they are optional, so you will stand above most other people that aren't doing these optional things. If other people are just watching TV every night and you're going to a sports club, so you go to football every night, then that's a lot more better for the culture and standing out within the workplace, because you're going into a workplace which may have social situations where football may be appropriate, or they might even just understand that as your part of your social skills comes from your ability to play football and to learn football and understand where the team culture comes from. These side projects are very important because employers don't really care about your coursework, or to an extent your degree. Everyone that's applying has this degree. Everyone that is applying has done some form of module in the same sense as you. So the modules that you're doing right now are not unique, they're not relevant. The side projects you're doing, those are unique. And even if someone else is doing a side project and you're helping them out in it, you can then use that as part of your leverage as well. So to give you a wee example on that, if you were to help your friend out with this motorized vehicle, you could say how you helped them out with the coding, or you could help them out with XYZ part of the project, and this enabled you to learn further and to teach him as well, or her, fundamentals and the foundations behind their project. So now that they understand their project more, they can continue on with their project because of your teaching and understanding. This is another part of how did you show initiative, how did you help somebody out, how did you... All these questions can be encompassed under this one small detail that you may have thought of in your life. You may never have considered it as help. You just thought, you just help out your pal. But when you help out your pal, that's when you can create a situation, a development for the employer themselves. So it's these kind of small situations where you're just helping out your pal. You can actually gain quite a lot of leverage from that in terms of employment, because if you can use it well to an employer, they will see you as an outstanding candidate for specific reasons. So they might think you're very, very selfless, or they might think you're a great teacher. You want to understand more through teaching, which is always ideal, because that's always the best way to learn. All of your projects on the side show some sort of initiative that you need to go show up every day, you need to go show up every week, whatever that is. It takes some strength to actually commit to these things. You may not realise it in the time because it's just what you do, but it takes some strength for somebody to go every single week to a club, or every single week to a tutoring session, or anything like that. These are things that all take strength. And this is part of what makes people, and what makes people want to grow, show more of their strengths, because everybody within the HR department wants to see somebody with good CPD values, or continued professional development values, which means essentially you want to keep going throughout your career. You don't want to just get this job and then stick at it. And then from there, once you got the job, you will continue to grow within that job, maybe become a manager, maybe become a manager again. And that's kind of what HR are looking for. They don't want to keep you on for a year and then send you off somewhere else, because that's a waste of time, waste of money. Whereas if they can keep you on for 3, 5, 10 years, then that is a great return on investment for you and for them. So that's what they're looking to fight, see. So another thing about job acquisition, or getting a role in general, is the specific tailored tasks that you're doing to get these jobs. So if you're in a situation where you've just been out of uni, or you've been out of uni for a wee while and you've got a wee bit of time behind your hands, what you want to do is you want to build up courses and online certificates. Essentially, these are online free platforms and free courses which you can do that may be tailored towards your degree. Ideally, you want to find some that is either general, if you're looking for a general role, or if you've got a specific role in mind, then there are a lot of courses out there that could tailor to your specific role. Some platforms I know specifically is Schneider Education, there's MIT have an open course software thing, as well as Coursera, Udemy as well, if that's another course potential platform. All of these are online credentials which you could say, in order to prepare for this role, I've also been trying to upskill myself into getting more qualifications. These additional qualifications can show you're going above and beyond what your university does. So with your university, you've got your qualifications, you've got your course. Without that, you've got your modules. You could essentially add on some extra modules, some online courses, and if you're lucky, then maybe the manager understands what these courses are. If you're unlucky, maybe they don't. And with that, it comes with a risk, but it's always bumping yourself up over the next person beside you. So if you've done this and the next person hasn't done this, then that's a wee extra bump up in your favour. Obviously, it's not going to be the deciding factor in most cases, but there will be many cases in which there are situations where you have more willpower and more initiative to try and get extra qualifications towards roles, and to try and get extra things that other candidates may not be doing. In areas such as London, I believe everyone's doing this, because London is the most competitive area you could go for. There's also, I'm sure in America and New York and Dubai, all have very competitive CVs, very competitive portfolios. If you're aiming for roles within those sectors, this is what you want to go for. If you're aiming for almost anywhere else, there's a very high chance if you go for these roles with these extra qualifications, you're going to be looked at as a different candidate. You're going to be looked at in a whole different light. I actually did this myself with something to the career acquisition. I did some Schneider Electric courses, and that bumped me up even further, I believe, because whenever I say that to employers, they would immediately recognise Schneider Electric and go, oh, okay, that's quite interesting. And that's why I believe I got more of an opportunity with some of these roles than maybe some of my fellow pals did within uni. So these courses are very powerful in that sense. They can really bump yourself up as a proper candidate and help you towards getting the link. As a coach, I would try and point out these courses towards you, look at what you're going for, see if there was any courses that directly related to it, and these courses would always would always be an additional thing. It's always that extra little bit to help you get that role. So with this part, I want to talk about your final year project. It's likely if you're doing an engineering degree or any sort of them related thing, you will have a project for your final project. This project is a powerful tool in getting a job. This project can make or break your job application. If you choose what is like a floating project, then it's a project that doesn't do too much. You tick boxes, you pass the course, and that's about you. You might get a low mark, you might get a mediocre satisfaction from it, but it's a way to pass the course without really thinking about it too much. You can get simple projects and you can get projects that will just get you through, essentially. You can also get an A in these projects fairly easily, because the simpler the project, the more time you have to write about it, the less time it takes to do, etc. All these things. You can do this, but I wouldn't recommend it as a coach. I would recommend choosing a strong project that you feel passionate about. So if you can find a cool thing to do, maybe some sort of mechanical arm, or some people might consider that a simple project, but I would say mechanical arm's quite hard. It depends on the number of servo motors, etc. But if you choose a fairly complicated mechanical arm or a strong project that you wouldn't maybe not think to do, something to do with signals, something to do with AI maybe, then that will give you a lot more to talk about within your interview process. So when a project that gives you a lot of challenges and a lot of things to overcome is exactly what you're looking for. These challenges and overcomes can be used as your interview questions, and you can have them in your bank of knowledge for when you've got a difficult situation coming up and you need to think about a time where you used maybe integration, maybe AI, maybe something along these lines, because that is a very stressful task that could be considered some difficult thing you've overcome within your project or within your working. And the harder the task of overcoming, the more value it's gained towards an interview process, and even to yourself, like even to the whole confidence of knowing you can create a project, which is difficult. That is overall worth more when you're presenting to a team, a HR team, whoever you're presenting to. Even if you're presenting just for your final grade project, you will have more confidence because you kind of know more about it, because you need to know more about it, because it's a harder project to understand, so you need to know all the fundamentals to begin with. Real decisions are made throughout this, because if you've got a difficult project which requires signal processing, which requires a little bit of PIDs, a little bit of here and that, and basically all these buzzwords which you could fit into your project if you wanted to make a car that can avoid obstacles, turn around corners, understand signals coming in, maybe even have image processing in there. Obviously I'm talking from more of an electronics perspective here, but that can also be applied to mechanical or civil or wherever you're from. You can find a project which has a lot of your main buzzwords in it, and these projects can prove that you can do them, and it will be really helpful towards your career goals and aspirations within the interview process. And I think that is another part of what makes a good candidate compared to a lesser candidate. A lesser candidate will have perhaps a lesser project, which means they can't talk too much about it. You can only really stretch how difficult something is so much. Like if something reaches a level, then switch something else on. There's not much you can talk about in general. So you can only really stretch your difficulty to too far, especially if someone's technical and knows what they're talking about. In that case, you want something a lot more in-depth. And when you have something more in-depth, people that know what they're talking about know that it's quite in-depth. Even if they know they can do it themselves, they know it's kind of difficult, and for that reason, it'll be valued more. One of the anecdotals I had was my lecturer himself did his PhD on part of my project, and one of the things he said to me was, I know this is very difficult to do because I've done it myself for 4 years. So with that, it gives you a wee bit more confidence because you're doing something more difficult, and other people will understand that. Other people will say you've took the initiative to do something more difficult and to challenge yourself, as opposed to doing a project which isn't necessarily as hard, simply put. And it really shows, like, at the end of the day, what kind of person would you take? Would you take the easy route, or maybe you could say you just wanted an A at the end of the day, and maybe you said you wanted to be the best in your class, whatever. Maybe that was your reasoning for it, but that is particularly a strong point, and some people may disagree with. As well as that, some people may get upset by the fact that they might have not chosen the hardest project, and maybe, I wouldn't necessarily call anyone out on it, but I'd say for definite when it comes to jobs and job acquisition, it's a lot harder to do an easier project. From some of the people I've talked to, they've had projects in which they haven't had to do much challenging issues, they've not came across many issues, and when you don't come across many issues, you can't really talk about the issues you come across, because either they're small issues or they're issues that were solved quickly, and for that reason it doesn't really make a good situation for you to bring up a candidate questionnaire. You can find other candidate questionnaires within your job or wherever else, but if you've not got those, really think about making a more difficult project for that reason, so you can get that experience within a challenging environment. So for the next part, let's talk about my individual experience. So I started off in college for 2 years, and from there I didn't really know where I was going to begin with. I tried to join the RAF for a while, got rejected from that, so I joined electronics engineering in college. That then got me onto my second year project, which again, everybody wanted to do one project. I chose a slightly different project, a slightly more unique project, so because of that reason nobody else was doing my project, and I could find a way to make it mine, if that makes sense. Like, I could figure out more research tailored towards my project, because not everybody was doing it, and I wouldn't have the ability to go, hey, what are you doing, just copy the next guy, So for that reason I wanted to do my own project, and something that was a wee bit different. That then led me on to university. Again, I wasn't sure if I was going to go to university, but by the end of my second year I started doing quite well in college, which turned it around really for me, because my first year of college I was terrible, to say the least. I was barely passing half the classes, and it was very, very difficult, but that was just me, because I wasn't very academically inclined until maybe I started properly understanding how to study and how to actually go for it, if that makes sense. How to properly lock in for myself. I'm very easily distracted, as you can guess, but there is ways you can focus your brain and lock in, and I really figured that out in my late second year of college, maybe even early third year. So in third year of university, which I then went to from the college role, that's when I really learned to study. I really got my grades and my averages up, which was really good. I managed to get above an average of 70%, which was ideal for me. That was the best you can the best grade you can get in my university. So from there I went into my fourth year, and that's when it came around to deciding the projects. But obviously I was saying about choosing a difficult project. There were simple projects that I could do specifically within Arduino, sensing, controlling. There were specific smart home features that you could do. The smart home features itself didn't really interest me, because I'm not really looking for a smart home at the moment. I reckon I could look to it another time and find a way to implement smart home technology, but for now I wasn't really that interested in it. So for me specifically, there was a project that was a sound direction finder, and this is what I chose as my project, because it was quite difficult applications to it. There was a lot of digital signal processing, working in nanoseconds at times, trying to figure out all the mathematics between getting a signal location from only 2 microphones to begin with, and then adding an additional 2 microphones later on, which complicated it even further, which is really good, because not only could I talk about that, I could then struggle and stress through that situation, because once you got the first one working, then you had to get the second one working, and as well as that, you got to use function generators and additional equipment to make sure it works in a perfect environment to then work in a actual physical environment instead. So what I essentially did was I made sure I simulated it properly, I learned how to simulate, and then I learned on to how to implement the simulation in real life, essentially. And that's how I created my device in the end. And I feel like there was a lot of stages to that, a lot of progression, and it took a long time. It took a lot of hours in the lab, and my supervisor at the time really appreciated how long I spent in the lab, multiple hours, especially with all the other stuff going on with all the other studies. It's quite difficult, but I reckon it's definitely worth it just to lock in and grind for that year. So during that year you're doing everything, you're doing all your projects, you're doing all your regular models, and everything you've got going is outside of university as well. Even with that, with university I was also applying for jobs constantly from the last year in September. So I was going from jobs mainly for electronics and electricals. I was going for more general, broader jobs at the time as well, because I wasn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of firing out applications left, right and centre. But then when I really started to lock in jobs I wanted, I started to see a lot more success on the return rate, essentially. With the actual jobs, when you start the application, that's probably your most important part, because if you put in a lot of effort into saying what you can provide, what you can bring value to, that's where it makes a difference between getting the job and not getting the job, essentially. So from that perspective, I think I really did quite well when I realised what I wanted and what I was going for, and when I fully locked in on those jobs, that's when I got the interviews and got the successes that I did. Funny story, actually. I was actually in a supervisor meeting when I got a call to say I got one of those jobs, and I was actually buzzing, and he was just like, right, let's get on with the project now. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're just skipping over that part then, but I guess that's the nature of it in general. So you want to make sure that you're doing a bit of everything. Like, you got to balance it all, and you got to balance your social life, you got to balance whatever else you got going on outside as well, which is very difficult to do. And even at that time, I was making videos on electronics a lot, nothing crazy, just once every few months or few weeks, etc. It was nothing, no mental videos like the new ones I intend to do, but in general, it was really challenge and really exciting to go for. When I was auditioning for roles, I generally didn't have the outcome for any of the roles I'd applied for, because they all take so long and they all go for a long time together. You don't really know where you're going to end up, so you got to give your all to every single role. Even if you think you did well in the last one, you got to go for the next one and just do it just as hard, which is quite taxing and quite hard to do. So I think with a structured system, it would be a lot easier to understand what does well, what doesn't do well, and I think for that reason, you need to really focus on how you're going to achieve success when you have to do it so many more times, and that was a real struggle for me as well. But at the end of the day, we're now here, and I'm now going into my graduate role in September, which I'm really looking forward to. But also I want to work on this on the side, because I want to work on two things. I want to provide value for others and help other people through that situation of getting through the last stage, and also build up my own company, which would be the Electronics Unlocked system, which would be the chartership system, which would get more people into engineering from a young person's perspective, or into entry roles. I would essentially like to focus towards just getting a degree or no degree at all, which is really hard for people to get into tech without degree or without qualifications, but there's good reason. I believe the university itself focuses on the degree aspects, on making sure people learn and making sure people know what's going on, whereas I think there's other methods you could do that. And I think universities, as time goes on, more people are realising that universities are getting more and more outdated. So as long as they're outdating it, and it introduces a level for someone new to step in, and that's where I want to step in and make sure people can get roles without university degrees or with just receiving university degrees. So there's more to it, and I believe, and there's more to the coaching that I'm providing. I'm coaching to get a broader perspective on people's needs, wants and struggles, and specifically the struggles. This is where everything can be changed, and I believe I can change this. I just need some resources, some time, and to keep grafting. So that's my intention going forward, to keep grafting and keep going for it. So from all this, where can I help you? I don't want to offer like a rubbish program which chugs you through a service. I want to look at your life, see what you do, and see how that can apply for roles. I want to help you along these stages because they are difficult, and as well as everything else going on, you don't need the stress of trying to figure out what every single role wants, or what you should be doing in every single role, etc. You want to do your uni work, you want to go have a social life while all that's going on in the background. I would like to tailor those services towards, here's what you could do towards getting this next role, here's what would make you look good in this next role, and so long as you can spare out some time in your week to go and do these activities, then you can put them on your CV, you can put them towards your process, and that's going to make the difference between getting a role and not getting a role. More people getting technical roles is the ultimate goal for me. I believe everyone has the possibility to get into these roles, but a lot of the things holding people back, or maybe not what's thinking them holding them back, or maybe the interview process itself, and I believe I can help out with all of that. And from there, I want to build the servers in the background as well. So while I'm helping people, I'll build the servers in the background, and then that will go on to have its beta members, of which you can maybe be a part of. So if that sounds like you, and you think I could help you out, I've got a quick form for you to fill out. It's not too long, it just tells me where you're struggling most, it just tells me the kind of things I need to know before a welcome interview, and which we can have a wee welcome interview. You can book yourself into my schedule, and then we can see where we can go from there. So what I'm offering is a free one-to-one welcome interview where we can discuss your form, how you've applied it, and from there we can go into an actual coaching session where I will walk you through your problems, what we can do, and how we can get you to those next stages. The results themselves are focused on you, but the strategies and the way to get to the results I can help you with, and I can show you what to do in order to improve your chances to get these kind of roles. There's no pressure, of course, it's just a conversation between the two of us to begin with, and then after that we can go on to, here's the plan. So if you're serious about getting a career in tech and you want to make this your count, then please be sure to subscribe, follow along with the forum, and reach out wherever you can, even if it's just through messages or comments. Let me know what your struggles are. I'll try and help out as much as I can, but in general, let's get you booked in and let's see how that goes. Thank you for hearing me out, and I'll see you in the next one. Good luck.